war veterans' pensions are so pathetic. We are receiving Nostro $100 and RTGS $200,000. We've got sanctions in this country. It's a fact. The government went through land reform. It's a fact. Seated as we are here, one of the major grievances that activated people to go for liberation was the issue of land.
Greetings. Welcome to your favorite program that you are given by 263 Times, Power Talk. Today we have invited the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association Secretary General, Mr. Edward Dube. Mr. Edward Dube, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tino.
Maybe you can start to tell us about your history in the liberation struggle.
Okay, thank you very much. I joined the liberation struggle in 1975. I actually absconded from school on the 12th of July 1975. I was learning at Mount Selinda. My journey through the struggle took me to various places for training in Tembwe and operational in Chivi, Zvishavani, and part of Shurugwi until the end of the war.
When did you become the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association?
I was ushered into that post at the Extraordinary Congress hosted on the 7th of October 2023. This Congress was a bit out of the norm from the usual congresses that are hosted by the Zimbabwe National Congress, by the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association. One thing that I just want to bring across now that you have asked the question, a lot of people have been asking, why is it that we're not privy to that Congress? Why is it we did not go down to grassroots? The first thing that happened is that people need to be aware that this was an extraordinary Congress. Extraordinary in what sense? It was extraordinary by virtue of the fact that those that were supposed to have hosted the Congress failed to do so. The Mutsvangwa executive, which was ushered into office on the 16th of November 2014, failed to call for a Congress when their term ended on the 15th of November 2019. So a group of comrades who found it prudent and just to maintain the association decided to come up with a plan to choose a new leadership, since the Mutsvangwa-led executive had completed its tenure and its the Mutsvangwa's executive desire to cling to the positions was not legal. Hence, an extraordinary Congress was convened on the 7th of October. But due to financial constraints, where we could not invite a bigger electoral college, we then substituted or resolved that we utilize what we call an electoral college system. The Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association Constitution does not dictate how the election processes are done. whether by bereka mwana, whether by secret ballot, whether by raising hands. And so we found it prudent that we adopt the electoral college system. What do I mean by saying the electoral college system? This is a system that is used to elect the President of the United States. How does it operate? It operates in this matrix. A constituency or a grouping categorized in various places chooses a proxy who then stands on their behalf to carry out nominations. We did the same. We congregated, made resolutions as an interim committee to have a chief election officer. These chief election officers then sent out proxy forms and also nomination forms to the 10 provinces. When that was done, at the provincial level, 30 war veterans were congregated to elect a proxy who would stand on their behalf in the nomination process. And we have it on record. The names, signatures of the 30 war veterans from each province, who then chose a proxy, the proxy with the guidance of the 30 comrades in each province, made nominations of who they would want amongst the top 6 for positions that were availed.
Maybe going back to Comrade Christopher Mutsvangwa, he still claims that he is your chairman. What do you say about this?
Well, it's unfortunate, you know. At law, Christopher Mutsvangwa ceased to be chairman of the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association on the 15th of November 2019. His clinging to power is illegal. Personally, to me, and those that are knowledgeable about the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association Constitution are aware that you are only given a tenure of 5 years, subject to you being again endorsed by Congress, which the Honorable Mutsvangwa failed to do, which means Comrade Mutsvangwa's claim is invalid and illegal.
Are you in speaking terms with Comrade Christopher Mutsvangwa and those who are siding with him?
You mean on a personal note or an institutional note?
Institutional note.
Well, currently we don't have any business with Honorable Mutsvangwa, since he is no longer an executive of the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association. But on a personal note, we don't have any qualms with him.
Does President Emerson Mnangagwa, who is the patron of war veterans, recognize you as the Secretary General of organization?
You bring a very interesting issue, which probably I will put across so that you have a clear understanding. The Christopher Mutsvangwa-led executive amended the constitution to remove the patron. Currently, the Christopher Mutsvangwa constitution, which was amended, does not have a provision for a patron.
Let's move on to talk about the welfare of war veterans. What do you say that needs to be urgently addressed as war vets?
The war veterans situation in Zimbabwe is pathetic. It's not, if you look at the current status, socio-economic status of war veteran in Zimbabwe, it's so pathetic. You get to a point where people really ask you whether it was valid to go and sacrifice, to go and shed blood of sons and daughters to be where we are at this juncture. Let me just elaborate on a few issues that need to be addressed. When we went to war, one of the fundamental grievances was the issue of land. As I speak, the majority of war veterans do not have access to land. Those that managed to have access to land, some are being chased out from the farms, which brings to the fore the issue of tenure, security of tenure. It's a humble appeal to the government and all relevant stakeholders that the war veterans be afforded an opportunity to have land for farming with appropriate title. That is the first issue. The second issue is housing and residential land. 43 years after independence, a majority of war veterans are still lodging. There's never been a program to empower war veterans to secure residential stands or to afford them houses within the government plans. You are aware that the houses that have been built for civil servants and the like. But as war veterans, we were never afforded the opportunity to be part of those schemes. Thirdly, the issue of pensions. Let me tell the public or inform the public. War veterans' pensions are so pathetic. We are receiving nostro $100 and RTGS 200,000. From the figures that I mentioned, it means what we are earning from the state is below the poverty datum line, which means all veterans are scrounging to survive in liberated Zimbabwe 43 years after. A constituency of war veterans, after having realized that the pensions were not adequate, came up with a grouping for the purpose of advocacy, which was called the pressure group. They took the government to court, and the award was made in the High Court to improve on the pension levels. We are currently seized with the issue so that government can pay what the court decided on.
But the problems that you just outlined, it's problems which are faced by Zimbabweans generally. What do you have to say about that?
No, you're very right. We live in a community. But the issue at hand is it's regrettable that the milk and the honey that we anticipated as liberation fighters and as masses, a lot has not been realized. We sympathize with the public, but on this fora, whilst I sympathize with the public, I can only address what I'm more conversant with. There are various forums in this country where people are addressing the same plights. The issue of poverty alleviation, the issue of security of tenure. But I thought it was prudent that since I'm here representing the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association, I articulate on the specifics of that. But as an association, we are mindful of the challenges that the country is facing. Zimbabwe is going through a very difficult period economically. And it's our humble suggestion that if the government could include the War Veterans Association, we have solutions which we could discuss with government to assist in the alleviation of poverty, social issues that we feel are not being adequately addressed. Let me just bring you back to the struggle times. We survived as fish and water. The masses were the water. The veterans were the fish. We are still desirous to maintain that relationship. To those that have been reading our objectives, you realize that we have propagated that we are not going to be partisan in our approach. The whole idea of being non-partisan is to be able to articulate matters of national interest. You put it through to the current executive led by Matibela. We are determined to provide suggestions and inputs to the National Development Strategy 1. It's a brilliant document which, if carried to the latter, can be able to address the various needs that we are talking about. But unfortunately, we are not being offered an opportunity to contribute to nation building. We are not being offered an opportunity to contribute as part of advocacy. We are not being offered an opportunity to be representative in governance structures in this country where we can make a contribution. But the bottom line remains, we and the people of Zimbabwe face the same challenges. But by virtue of the fact that at this juncture I am addressing issues of war veterans, a time will come when we'll start articulating national matters But currently we've got matters which are outstanding, which the Constitution and statutory provisions have already made clear. There's a very brilliant piece of legislation in this country which recognizes the importance of war veterans, which recognizes what the war veterans are entitled to. But those that are supposed to implement are not doing that. Section 23 in brackets 3 of the Zimbabwe Constitution and Section 3 in brackets I of the Zimbabwe Constitution and statutory provisions provided for under the Veterans of the Liberation Struggle Act, Chapter 1712 of 2020, are brilliant pieces of legislation when read. But to date, a lot has not been realized. Nothing has been executed from those studies. So, the Zimbabwe National Liberation of Veterans, of which I am Secretary General, is coming in to provide the advocacy and the representation to have those good statutes implemented.
Maybe you can just provide maybe a highlight of the solutions that you think if they are implemented, maybe they can solve the current problems that Zimbabweans are facing. Maybe just a highlight what you think it's urgent to be done to make sure that Zimbabwe.
Okay. One thing that has been my humble prayer ever since is that we as Zimbabweans do not have a national agenda. We lack a national agenda in our approach to politics. Let me just elaborate what I mean by a national agenda. We've got sanctions in this country. It's a fact. The government went through land reform. It's a fact. Seated as we are here, one of the major grievances that activated people to go for liberation was the issue of land. You wake up one morning, a politician who assumes the national stature will be bastardizing land reform. He is in independent Zimbabwe, but is bastardizing land reform. On the issue of sanctions, when you go and request for sanctions which affect your mother, your brother, your sister, your uncle, what does that really mean? In a nutshell, what I'm putting through here is, Zimbabweans, let us not be opposition for the purpose of being opposition. When matters that affect the nation are brought to the fore, let's think beyond our tummies. Let's think of what men and women who died for this country, wanted to achieve. Once we are agreed on that agenda, then we can start contesting to achieving those national objectives better than the ruling party or the like. Let me just put it simply. Instead of arguing that land reform was not supposed to be executed, let's disagree on the way and the manner that land reform can better the lives of Zimbabweans. Instead of advocating for sanctions, let's agree how Zimbabwe as a country can benefit from international trade. There's a lot that we can benefit from international trade. At the end of the day, the same advocates of sanctions are the same people who will be name-calling the country that there's a lot of corruption. Yes, there's corruption. But have we overthought in our minds the root cause of corruption? The root cause of corruption is arbitrage. By blocking lines of credit, we are creating arbitrage. And then people use that provision of arbitrage to propagate corruption. I thought this was, so that when there's nothing bad about having opposition politics. Nothing's bad. Actually, it's very healthy. But the idea that we don't have a national agenda, people oppose for the purpose of opposing. A national agenda should be able to define our sovereignty, should be able to define our independence. A national agenda should be able to articulate the control of the means of production of this country. And then parties can then contest on how those objectives can be achieved better. That's the type of politics that I would recommend in this country.
Some have said that war vets seem to be entitled. Did you go to war so that you'll be paid?
You bring a very interesting point, The Constitution of Zimbabwe, let me repeat, Section 23 in brackets 3, Section 3 in brackets I, talks to the provisions of entitlement for the war veterans of Zimbabwe. But the way people take this entitlement is that they think when we demand what is provided for in the Constitution, we are like crybabies. No. On the other note, it's my humble prayer that this nation understands the prejudice that young, brave men and women suffered by going to the liberation struggle. It's not something out of the ordinary that when men and women put their lives on the line, and when the objectives of independence is achieved, they need to be rewarded. So when war veterans demand what is within the provisions of the Constitution or the statutes. It's not that because we are not aware that other people outside have got the same problems. But remember, we were prejudiced. Some of our mates, during the time where the struggle, went to school, started businesses, and all the like. And when we came back ourselves, we start from zero. Go to school, feed our families, this and that. But we are still living in the same society. So it's not a matter of entitlement. It's a matter of having more veterans catch up with their fellow colleagues. Unfortunately, some of our war veterans or our colleagues are lying in unmarked graves outside the country. So that's my take on that.
So maybe just to be specific, how much do you think the country should give you for you to be satisfied as a reward for what you did during the liberation struggle?
It's unfortunate, people think we are, after being rewarded monetary. Let me just articulate a few issues that we as the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association, under the leadership of Ethan Matibela, are advocating for. We are not asking for non-sustainable monetary benefits. There's no way in this world where a pension will be adequate. The current National Executive has prepared a blueprint and he has made amendments to the current War Veterans Association Constitution. These amendments into the Constitution are directed at having the association have business synergies. In our concept paper, we are looking at being part of national development. How do we want to be part of national development? We would want to capacitate in liaison with other stakeholders, war veterans who are on the land. We would want to be part of housing development. If the government can offer land developers land to develop, we are also ready and able to do the same. War veterans suffer a lot of health challenges. We have a blueprint to create memorial hospitals, which will provide also as a tourism hub. We are ready and able to compete in conservancies so that we also contribute to the fiscus. So it's not a matter of that war veterans are after getting pensions only. No. We are not. We have evolved. We are on a transformational trajectory as we speak. We have categorically mentioned that Our stakeholders include government, private sector, media, international partners. The whole essence of getting this on board is to provide synergies which can enable us to run businesses. What's the difference at the moment if private sector players can be offered an opportunity to have a diamond mine? We are able and ready to partner with government in that. In all these sectors, we are ready to partner with them in PPPs. So to those that think and assume that we are just looking at the fiscus to draw down the fiscus, that's not our objective at all. Is it? It's unfortunate the way people look at war veterans. It's at times it's very negative, but we appreciate their thinking because they've never had an opportunity to exchange views with us. Currently, we are seized with a communication strategy where we are going to be making the public aware of our brand. Not this type of brand where people think we are loose cannons and the like. No, 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 no. This branding that we are going through will project that we are more nationalistic than partisan. We want to contribute to the fiscus. We want to be part of NDS1. We stand with what the people of Zimbabwe, we empathize with what they are and would want to provide solutions. We would want to be part of governance where decisions are made for the benefit of the country.
As war vets, what's your position about the recent sacking of Ambassador Chris Mutsvangwa as war veterans minister?
No, it's unfortunate. We've put it on several fora that we are not the appointing authority. The appointing authority determines who to appoint and disappoint. So if the appointing authority found it prudent that Mutsvangwa, Honorable Mutsvangwa, should be fired or replaced, whatever term you call it, it's none of our business. But on the war veteran side, we are happy that the president managed to identify someone who was not in sync with the objectives of the association. The whole idea of calling for an extraordinary Congress stemmed from the fact that Honorable Mutsvangwa did not deliver in his 5-year term. To us, he was a stumbling block, and by removing that block, I think we're heading for better times.
Have you engaged with the new veterans minister?
We did engage with the new veterans minister when she was deputy, and the day before yesterday, when the day she was sworn in, we also published a communique congratulating her, and we are hopeful that Madam Honorable Mavunga will be able to handle the diverse issues that currently the war veterans are facing, which need to be resolved.
A year ago, there were some war veterans who demonstrated in Harare. They were arrested. What do you have to say about this?
It's quite sad. It's really sad, you know. Although I really don't know why they were arrested. But their objective was to highlight the pension levels. And these are the same people who took the government to court and won. It's my humble prayer that the president will consider the matter of these war veterans. That the current, I'm meant to understand the out on bail, and they have to report to the courts after a certain prescribed time. I humbly request that the president will find it prudent to close this chapter of all veterans who were advocating for their rights to continuously be seen in courtrooms because they were demanding what is due to them.
Maybe as a matter of clarity, some people may want to know, do war veterans align with the ruling parties and PF, or they are war veterans from the war nation, those who bring liberation to this country?
Can you repeat your question again?
I'm saying that maybe some people may want to know that are war veterans aligned to the ruling parties and PF, or they are for everyone, for every Zimbabwean?
You bring a very interesting question, and I think I just need to put it clear to the nation. Whilst we are birthed from ZANU and ZAPU, we were fighting for Zimbabwe. We're not fighting for parties. The association where I'm SG is not aligned to any political party. Let me put it very clear. The association, not the individual. The association is not aligned to any political party. As an individual, I can be aligned to any political party. The Constitution of Zimbabwe gives me the right and the freedom of association. Those of our members who are aligned in their individual capacities to ZANU-PF have got the link. I'm not privy about opposition formations, but what we articulate as an association is that we don't bring partisan politics into our matters. The only time we can subscribe to politics is on national matters. If we talk about nation building, if we talk about NDS 1, you see, if we talk about foreign relations or international relations, if we talk about international trade, we subscribe to those agenda items, but not partisan agenda items. And remember, we are based from ZANU and ZAP, which is now ZANU-PF. We will support those who defend the sovereignty and independence of this country.
Maybe to also take you back, during the election campaigns and campaigns maybe of ZANU-PF, we have seen war vets campaigning for ZANU-PF and even chanting slogans, but it's rare to see them in opposition spaces. What do you have to say about this?
Let me put it kindly, Tino. Whoever probably have not noted, there's some more veterans in opposition politics. So it's not that the ruling party is the one that has got war veterans. In opposition, there are also war veterans. And is their right? Is their right to associate with political parties of their choice? And I want you to separate a corporate body called the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association with the individual or a grouping of war veterans who are members of a certain party. There's distinction. As Secretary General of the Zimbabwe National Liberation War Veterans Association, I will reiterate it again. We relate with government on matters of interest. Our members are free to exercise their right of freedom to association. It does not mean when a war veteran is a league member, that is the position of the association. No. We don't sit in meetings of the War Veterans League. We don't sit in meetings of, I don't know how they call them, in the opposition. No. We are not part of that. Our agenda is completely different. Our agenda is more nationalistic, where we want to be able to contribute to national development with the war veterans being part of national development. That's why you find out we subscribe to NDS1. We are more nationalistic in our thinking. That is why we also stand with the people. Whether you are MDC, whether you are ZANU-PF, whether you are Ndonga, once you are hungry, we have the right for advocacy and representation. No, to tell the state that why can't we find solution in this manner? But unfortunately, we've not given the privilege to contribute the way we would have wanted to. When the new government was installed in October, we wrote to various ministries about synergies that would want the Zimbabwe National Liberation or veterans contribute. We wrote to Masuka, we wrote to local government, we wrote to tourism, we wrote to Home Affairs, we wrote to climate ministry, about 20 of them. In each ministry, we feel we have contributions that we can make towards the successful implementation of NSD, National Development Strategy 1. So this issue of people being war veterans in ZANU-PF, being war veterans in, it's not our agenda. Our agenda is empowerment, social inclusion in state apparatus, where we can contribute positively.
Maybe these current reports about an amendment of the Constitution which will maybe guarantee President Emmerson Mnangagwa to run for third term. What do you say about this as offense? What's your reaction to this?
Is it true?
There are reports that are going on, and some of the ZANU PF weights are said to have maybe said some of these sentiments on February 21.
Okay.
The country was celebrating the National Youth Day.
Okay. Let me just digress on that. The association that I represent today has not sat down to deliberate on that issue. I also want to bring to your attention that as an association, we don't indulge again and again in partisan politics. The way I read the Constitution, it does not provide for that. The current Constitution does not provide for a third term unless amended. So the onus is on the parliamentarians. If the same parliamentarians are representing the interests of the people that voted them into power, I believe they will make the proper determination.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Dube, for making some clarification on some issues concerning warfares.
I'm humbled. I'm humbled.
Thank you for watching. We have come to the end of our program. Don't forget to subscribe on our 263 Times YouTube channel so that you'll be notified on our next program.